now. Sir, it is a busy time. It's the final stretch of the campaign. When you're watching and seeing these final arguments from some of the campaigns, what stands out to you as maybe the winning message by former President Donald Trump?
Yeah. Well, I think number one is the cake is pretty well baked, and the emphasis is getting people out to vote. That's what's important. Is early voting's underway, and people need to get out there and vote. But what I hear from Kansans continuously is the open border, safety and security of your family. 92% of Kansans don't feel safe in their own homes anymore. And then next, of course, is the cost of gas and groceries. But I tell you what really moved the needle this last week is this garbage, this trash comment on the part of Biden and Harris, that those people that were on the sidelines that maybe weren't going to vote, that comment was so infuriating. You know, it goes back to this egotistical Democrat Party of today saying that people that don't live on the coast, that we cling to God and our religion and our Bibles, that we're deplorables, and now we're trash. At least they could have called us recyclable trash. But I think that's really what's going to move the needle and people get out to vote today.
And that story went even further when a stenographer raised a concern. Again, the Associated Press put out that the White House altered the record of Biden's garbage remarks despite the stenographer concerns. And now there's pushback related to the Presidential Records Act on this. So while you may thought this was a story for 24-hour news cycle, we're on to the next. It actually is not. And we've seen pushback on that. Is that concerning to you if indeed these transcripts were altered as reported by the Associated Press, sir?
Well, I think this is the next chapter on why don't Americans trust their federal government anymore. We see our jobs numbers again were doctored as well, and we got a very horrible jobs report today. But at the end of the day, I think that people in the Midwest that we're concerned about our values being attacked, and lying and deceit is the opposite of the values that we were raised on. That we were raised on values like faith and family and country. And here we have a Democrat Party, the leading candidate for the president of the United States for the Democrats thinks that boys should compete in girls' sports, that we should be paying for transgender surgeries, that boys should be in girls' locker rooms. One more example of our values being attacked.
Yeah, plus, you know, at least online, there were some photos of folks dressed in garbage bags, whether it was out trick-or-treating or if they were even heading out to the polls to cast their ballot. So it might have backfired on the president, even with those off-the-cuff comments. Let's move on to this, shall we, Senator? You wrote an op-ed for Newsweek, and in it, you've criticized the Biden administration, saying they've declared war on American agriculture. We cannot forget about our farmers, by the way. You write, where the Trump administration rolled back harmful regulations to empower farmers, Biden has expanded them, stifling innovation and suffocating our agriculture sectors. Biden's veto of a bipartisan effort to reverse the burdensome waters of the U.S. regulations only adds insult to injury. And of course, you highlight President Biden here. But do you see a differentiation between President Biden's approach to this versus what potentially a President Harris would take?
Well, look, Kamala Harris is going to continue this same aggressive insults on American agriculture, American energy, and those are really the same thing. Look, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris gave us a record drop in net farmer income, a record drop in net farm income, and they just drowned us in regulations. That drop in income occurred because our energy costs went up, fuel and fertilizers, but interest rates just swamped our farmers as well. President Trump, on the other hand, we did great under him in the agriculture rule. He rolled back regulations. He gave us trade agreements. He gave us USMCA, South Korea, and Japan, all of which we're benefiting from right now. Kamala Harris has not done one trade agreement. She's not even tried to do a trade agreement. As I think of those Midwest states that are up for grabs, dairy is so important to them. Thanks to President Trump, our trade agreements have increased exports of milk products from $6 billion to $9 billion a year. So President Trump has always prioritized agriculture. Every time I see President Trump, he asks me, Roger, how are your farmers doing? He gave farmers $28 billion in that tariff money from China when they were manipulating markets as well. So President Trump has the back of American farmers and ranchers.
Well, early voting, according to registration here in NBC News, has registered Republicans, 52% of them already voting early, compared to 34% of Democrats, so outpacing there in Kansas right now. We appreciate that. That is Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas joining us with his op-ed. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Everybody go vote.